In the winter of 401 BC, a Persian soldier named Mithridates made a mistake that would cost him 17 days of his life. Not 17 days in prison, 17 days of dying. He was placed between two boats, fitted together like a shell, only his head and limbs protruding into the December cold. He was force-fed milk and honey until diarrhea erupted uncontrollably. More honey was poured over his exposed skin, sticky, freezing. A perfect trap. The boats were pushed onto a stagnant pond. The winter flies came within hours, slower than summer insects, but just as determined. They laid eggs in every opening of his body. The eggs hatched into larvae. The larvae began feeding. Guards were assigned to keep Mithridates alive by force-feeding him more milk and honey every freezing morning. He lasted 17 days before his body finally surrendered to the creatures consuming him from inside. While winter cold preserved him just long enough to feel every moment, this method was called scaism, the boats. It is the first of 7 torture methods I'll show you tonight that span 400 years, from ancient Persia to modern Iran. But here's what you need to understand. Scaism isn't even close to the worst on this list. Mithridates' crime, he killed Cyrus the Younger during the Battle of Cunaxa, which should have made him a hero. Instead, it killed him. The problem was that King Artaxerxes II wanted credit for killing Cyrus himself. He announced to the court that he'd personally struck the fatal blow. The lie became official history. Weeks later, at a royal banquet, Mithridates got drunk and bragged about being the true killer of Cyrus. Multiple witnesses heard him. Word reached the king within hours. For contradicting the king's official version of events, Mithridates was sentenced to the boats. The Greek historian Plutarch documented what the guards observed over 17 winter days, flesh rotting while the victim remained conscious. Creatures visibly moving beneath his skin. The smell so overwhelming that guards wrapped cloth around their faces before approaching. Mithridates remained conscious for most of the 17 days. He begged for death. The guards were forbidden to provide it. When he finally died, the boats were opened. What remained inside was no longer recognizable as human. The body had become an ecosystem, a colony of insects inhabiting what had once been a man. Scaism was practiced until approximately the 4th century AD, designed for maximum duration. 12 centuries later, during Europe's deadliest conflict, German soldiers developed a method designed for maximum degradation. They made their victims drink until their stomachs burst. But what they were drinking wasn't water. The 30 Years' War, the 1618 to 1648, killed approximately 8 million people across Central Europe. It produced innovations in cruelty that soldiers themselves struggled to perform during the brutal winters when armies couldn't march and occupied villages became torture laboratories. The Schwedentrunk, Swedish drink, was named after Swedish mercenaries who popularized it, though German and imperial soldiers used it just as frequently during the frozen months. The method targeted civilians suspected of hiding valuables. Soldiers would occupy a village during January or February and demand residents reveal where they'd buried their money, grain, livestock. When residents claimed to have nothing, the Schwedentrunk began. The victim was restrained in the freezing village square and their mouth forced open. A funnel was inserted into the throat. The soldiers then poured liquid manure into the funnel, not water, not alcohol. The liquid collected from barn floors, the slurry of cow and pig waste mixed with urine and rotting straw, sometimes partially frozen. The pouring continued until the victim's stomach distended visibly. Then soldiers would stomp on the abdomen, forcing contents back up, and begin pouring again. Contemporary accounts describe victims being forced to consume between 3 and 5 gallons of the slurry in the winter cold. The stomach would stretch beyond capacity. Internal ruptures were common. Those who didn't die from stomach rupture died from infections that followed in the cold. A pastor named Johann Daniel Mink described witnessing the Schwedentrunk performed on 17 villagers in a single day in January 1634. 14 of them died within hours. 3 survived with permanent internal damage. The method was so common during the war that it developed regional variations. In some areas, boiling liquid was used instead of barn slurry. In others, the liquid was mixed with sand or small stones to cause additional internal damage. The Swedish drink killed individuals. The French Revolution developed a method that could kill thousands in days, and winter made it even more efficient. Jean-Baptiste Carrier arrived in Nantes in October 1793 with orders to crush the counter-revolutionary uprising in the Vendée. He found the city's prisons overflowing with captured rebels, Catholic priests and suspected royalists. The guillotine could execute perhaps 30 people per day. Carrier had thousands of prisoners and weeks of pressure from Paris to show results. He invented what he called noyades drownings. The process was industrialized slaughter. Flat-bottomed boats called gabarets were modified with trapdoors in their hulls. Prisoners were loaded onto the boats, packed tightly, chained to prevent swimming. The boats were towed to the center of the Loire River during the coldest months of winter. The trapdoors opened. Everyone drowned in water so cold it stopped hearts before lungs could fill. The first noyade occurred on November 16th. 1,793, a freezing night. 90 Catholic priests were drowned at once. Their crime was refusing to swear loyalty to the revolutionary government. Carrier then refined his method during the brutal winter of 1793-94. He began ordering male and female prisoners stripped naked and tied together in pairs before drowning in the ice-cold Loire. He called these marriages Republican marriages. The pairing was deliberately obscene. Elderly priests tied face to face with young prostitutes. Nuns bound to convicted thieves. Teenage boys tied to elderly women. The purpose was not merely death, but humiliation intensified by winter's stripping away of all dignity. Between November 1793 and February 1794, Carrier drowned an estimated 4,000 people in winter water. Some historians estimate closer to 6,000. The bodies clogged the Loire. They washed up on riverbanks for 20 miles downstream. Fishermen reported catching corpses in their nets for months. The water supply became contaminated. When the political tide in Paris shifted in early 1794, Carrier was recalled and arrested. His defense was that he'd been following orders. The Revolutionary Tribunal disagreed. Carrier was guillotined in December 1794. His death took 3 seconds. His victims had taken considerably longer, struggling in freezing river water, bound to strangers, dying in the darkness of the Loire. France, killed by water. China developed a method that killed by sequential mutilation captured in photographs so disturbing they were classified for decades. The Western name is death by 1,000 cuts. The actual number was considerably higher, and photographic evidence exists of exactly what it looked like. Lynching was practiced from approximately 900 AD until its abolition in 1905. The method was standardized in legal codes that specified the sequence of cuts, the tools to be used, and the expected duration. The victim was tied to a wooden frame in a public location. The executioner began with flesh from non-vital areas: chest, arms, legs, back,